Good evening. I'm calling this meeting to order. The time is precisely 5:32 p.m. in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. This meeting is officially open with a quorum present. This evening, we are blessed to have students from Dolores Huerta Elementary School. If you haven't met the students yet, you should. They are a gift. And they will lead us tonight in the Pledge of Allegiance. In just a moment, Principal Carla Cochio will introduce them, but first, let's please stand for both pledges.
Which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The upper Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
President Jackson and members of the board, Dr. Scribner, it is indeed an honor for us to be here this evening. I would like to introduce our 5 students. We have Ms. Sage Cerda, who is our Student Council Secretary. We have Lynette Sandoval, who is our 4th grade class representative. We have Genesis Guerra, who is our historian. Please stand up. And Vanessa Rico, who is the 3rd grade class representative, and Alejandro Garcia, who's a 3rd grade class representative. Boys and girls, you did a great job. Thank you. And if all the parents, if you would please, your kiddos. Thank you, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you. And can we recognize all the students from Dolores Huerta? Would you all please stand up and let them get a picture of you from Communications Department?
Go ahead.
There was a young lady in green over there I want to make sure we get a picture of. All right, let's give them one more round of applause. And at this time, Clint Bond from our Communications Department will begin our recognitions this evening.
President Jackson, members of the board, Dr. Scribner, our greeters this evening are from the Army JROTC unit at Diamond Hill Jarvis High School, where James Garcia is the principal. The students will stand as I call their names. Battalion Commander, Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Jennifer Morales, a 12th grader. Battalion Command Sergeant Major is Cadet Sergeant Major Felipe Garcia, a 12th grader. The Battalion Executive Officer is Cadet Major Stephanie Casarubias, an 11th grader. Battalion Operations Officer is Cadet Captain Christian Vargas, 12th grade. Battalion Supply Officer is Cadet First Lieutenant Diamond Dunn, 11th grade. The Battalion Information Civil Operations Officer is Cadet First Lieutenant Avery Anderson, a 12th grader. So let's thank them for being here. The senior Army instructor is Major Retired Bruce Daniel. He's assisted by Sergeant Major Retired Paulette Nash. Thank you very much. This evening we are privileged to have with us 2 outstanding parent volunteers, Kirsten Trevino and Adelina Shipman from Greenbrier Elementary School. Would you please stand? They have provided invaluable support to the school in many ways, making it possible for other parents to be involved and contributing to making the school a great learning environment. Under Ms. Trevino's guidance since 2016, the PTA has grown from a handful of members to more than 100. The PTA and Ms. Trevino provide financial and service support to meet many of the needs for the teachers, students, and the other parents. Inspired by Ms. Trevino, the PTA does wonders for the school. From an undersea decor that transforms the school into a magical world of learning to a new laminator for the teachers, to organizing events like Daddy-Daughter Dance that brings parents and students together, they do it all. Ms. Shipman spends countless hours helping teachers and, more importantly, making them feel special. She spends her time and her own resources to make tokens of appreciation for the teachers throughout the school year and is always available to help them. Whenever she sees a need, Ms. Shipman is the first to volunteer. Greenbrier Principal Nicole Montalvo and Family Communications Liaison Cynthia Serrano will present certificates of appreciation to Kirsten Trevino and Adelina Shipman. We are also honored this evening to introduce to you a caring father, thoughtful neighbor, and exemplary leader. Mr. Espinoza, would you please stand? Manuel Espinoza represents the everyday citizen who quietly and pleasantly goes around doing good turns not only for his family, but also for those around him. He works nights and chooses to volunteer his time in the mornings at his daughter's school. He started volunteering at Rosemont Elementary 5 years ago. He helped students cross the street after school, and he later became active in the Rosemont Elementary PTO. He noticed that many parents got to the school early to pick up their children, but they had to wait outside in the elements until school was dismissed. This was an opportunity to help his fellow parents. When the school didn't have the funds to provide benches for the parents, Mr. Espinoza connected with a person who's in the construction field, and the school was able to install 13 benches around the campus and even some tables. Last year, his daughter advanced to Rosemont Middle School, where Mr. Espinoza continues to volunteer every morning and assist as a lunch volunteer. He helped start a PTO at Rosemont Middle, and he's now the president. We thank you, Mr. Espinoza, and your family for your continued support. We recognize you for your service to the Rosemont school community. Rosemont Middle School Principal Miguel Del Toro and Family Communications Liaison Jessica Espinoza will now present Mr. Espinoza with a certificate of appreciation.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. And now it's with a great deal of pleasure and appreciation that I introduce someone that everybody here knows, Tarrant County Precinct 1 Commissioner, Mr. Roy Charles Brooks, and his wife, Dr. Jennifer Brooks. Commissioner Brooks has been a longtime champion of the Fort Worth ISD, as has his wife, Dr. Jennifer Brooks. They are here this evening to introduce several outstanding students and their parents who are scholarship winners selected by the National Association of County Officials. Commissioner Brooks.
Thank you, President Jackson. To the members of the Board of Trustees and Dr. Scribner, I thank you for this opportunity to bring to your attention two outstanding Fort Worth ISD graduates. This past July, as president of the National Association of Counties, I was privileged to be able to give 2 4-year scholarships to 2 students from my county. And being an ardent supporter of single-gender education, I chose a scholar from the Young Women's Leadership Academy and a scholar from the Young Men's Leadership Academy. They came to Nashville to our annual conference, and before our 4,000 delegates, more or less, received their scholarship awards and supported by their principals, and I want to thank Dr. Scribner for arranging for them to be present. This was the first time these scholarships get given every year by whoever happens to be the president. but it was the first time that they had the opportunity to be supported by their principals, and Dr. Scribner arranged that, and I want to thank you. It meant a lot to our young scholars. So, our scholars are Mercedes Saldana, Mercedes is a 2018 graduate of the Young Women's Leadership Academy. She currently matriculates at Texas Christian University, where she has chosen strategic communications as her major. Her scholarship was underwritten by the Davenport Group out of Oklahoma City. The other scholar is Mr. Michael Matthews, a 2018 graduate of the Young Men's Leadership Academy. Michael currently matriculates at the University of North Texas, and right now he says he's a communications major. I'd like to invite them up and let them share some words with you, and then we'll get out of your way and let you conduct your business for the evening. Mercedes and Michael.
Mercedes said I'll be the one to talk first, so that's what I'll do. First, giving glory to God and my mother, who's here, and my father not able to be present. I want to say I'm thankful first for my family because although they let me drift from the nest, they're always there to guide me. I'm thankful for Mr. White always being present whenever I'm being honored or something great's happening for me, and always being there for when I can call, always making sure if I need something, he's there, and always being reassuring. So I thank you for not being a principal, but also a father figure. Talking about a little bit about my experience at UNT, I'm thankful for the people I've met. I'm thankful for those who I will be able to contact in the future. I'm thankful for everything that's going to be coming towards me in the future. I'm not sure exactly what direction I'll be swayed towards, but I know that with those around me, those above me, and able to guide me, that there's nothing but up from here. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Mercedes. I just want to say a big thank you to Ms. Albury of the Young Women's Leadership Academy. Without the Young Women's Leadership Academy, I really wouldn't be the woman I am today. Not only did I become a leader, but a woman leader, and I learned what responsibility that holds in itself. Being at TCU, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to stay in my hometown, to be close to my family. I was raised by a single mother, so it's good to have that short distance home. I want to say thank you to Commissioner Brooks as well as Dr. Brooks for this amazing opportunity, and it really helped me become this beacon of hope for my little sisters as well. And to any little girl who never thought that she would make it to college, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you to these outstanding young people. Michael brought his mother, Ms. Patrice Matthews. And to their principals, who you know well, Mr. White and Ms. Albury. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooks, and thank you to each student that was here tonight, especially to our scholarship winners from YMLA and YWLA. At this time, Mr. Bond will acknowledge one last recognition.
Thank you, President Jackson. January is School Board Recognition Month. It is a time to acknowledge the important role that the school board plays in our community. As I'm sure you have seen, most, if not all, our schools have posted thank you messages to their respective board members on their schools' marquees. This evening, as a token of appreciation, we are presenting each member with a fruit gift basket courtesy of our fine partner HEB Central Market. This year's statewide theme for Board Appreciation Month is Planting Seeds of Success. Our gifts this evening were chosen with that in mind. As trustees plant the seeds of student success with their leadership and oversight, they also get to see the fruit of that success.
Thank you, Mr. Bond, and thank you to HEB. Amazing, they do so much work on behalf of public education, and for them to recognize the Fort Worth ISD School Board is an honor, and we're most appreciative. Dr. Sims?
I'd just like to say thank you for the gifts. We appreciate it, but we are here for the children. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sims. This concludes our scheduled recognitions. We will take a short recess of 5 minutes so our guests may depart if they so choose. Thank you all for being here. At this time, we'll move on to number 4 on our agenda, which is reports and presentations, the financial report, and the 2019-20 budget update. Dr. Scribner, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you very much, President Jackson. Tonight we have our financial report and 2019-2020 budget, which will be presented to us by our Chief Financial Officer, Elsie Shiro, and a new addition to Fort Worth, newish addition to Fort Worth ISD, David Johnson. Elsie.
Thank you, Dr. Scribner and President Jackson and members of the board. David Johnson and I are going to be presenting to you this evening a financial update and our initial 19-20 budget update. And so we're going to be following this agenda. First, I wanted to go ahead and go over an analysis of the year ending June 30th of 2018. And I'm pleased to announce for that period, we again added to our fund balance. And I believe to better understand how we calculate and get to fund balance, it's good to do a 5-year analysis of our fund balance to see where we've been and where we're going and where we are currently. We've discussed many times the importance of having at least 2 to 3 months of unassigned fund balance, and not only does TEA, but the rating agencies look to that for our financial stability. And so if we look at this 5-year analysis, I want you just to focus on the left column, which is the 13-14 actually audited actuals, to kind of understand exactly how we get to fund balance over a period of time. And so if you look at the revenues that year, we had $621 million in revenue and about $622 million in expenditures. So actually, when you just subtract the expenditures from the revenue, we had a slight deficit that year. But what I don't think we've done a real good job in over the years is explain what other resources are. And I think simply stated is that there are transfers in and out in the general ledger over the years and over a given year. And for the most part, if you looked at what they are, there's kind of 2 historical types. Sometimes previously we have reimbursement resolutions that we get when we have a successful bond, and that will show up in other resources. And we also have some transfers out when we also support some of our internal service funds, like the print shop or the research and evaluation department. So that kind of looks at where the other resources come in that actually changes net fund balance. And so even in the 2013-14 year, although we started off with a slight deficit, when we look at the resources in of over $4 million, that was a reimbursement resolution that we received as a result of the 2013 bond. And so you can kind of see how it flows, over those years. And so I don't want to belabor 14-15 to the present, but I want to go ahead and focus on 17-18. That's why we're here this evening on this financial update. And in this instance, you're going to see that we had revenues of $759 million and expenditures of about $743 million. That initially had an excess revenue over expenditures of $16 million. And you're going to see that's primarily because of the TRE. And in addition, you're going to see other resources in that column of $7.2 million. And that's a reimbursement resolution that we received because of the 2017 successful bond. And so when you add those 2 numbers together, we're looking at a $23 million increase to fund balance in this last school year. Now, I wanted to even break that down further by fund. Currently, the general fund is made up of 3 funds. It's Fund 197, which is the student attendance incentive, 198, which is the TRE, and 199, which is the general fund. And so when you look at those 3 funds, it kind of explains to you how we came up with the $23 million in additional fund balance. Because if you look at 198, that column, we had revenue of 24 million, we spent just under 7, and so that netted out about almost a $17.3 million excess. What we do with that excess, it's in fund balance, its usage should be set aside for projects, one-time single projects, which we told the voters. We'd use TRE funds for all of the issues. We weren't going to finance any longer shorter-term assets. And so we should use that 17 million over the next year or two to start working on some of the very necessary projects that we have. And then in the general fund, if you look at revenues and expenditures, we were at a slight deficit of about $1 million, but when you add back in the reimbursement resolution, then that's why we have excess revenue over expenditures. And so today, as of June 30th of 2018, our fund balance is at $213 million. I wanted to also point out that when you look at our expenditures by function, in comparison to other surrounding large school districts, Fort Worth is in the center there. And then the average is on the far right. And so when you look at like function 11, 12, and 13, we're spending about 62% of our budget on instructional. And while the average of our other comparable school districts is about 58, in student support services, which is counselors and nurses and all those other social services, we're spending right at 12% of our budget, while our counterparts are about 10.5. And more importantly, when you look at administration, which is function 41, the average is about 2.75%, and we're spending less at 2.11, 2.11. And so with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Johnson to go over the 1920 budget update.
Thank you, Ms. Shiro. We'll start with the revenue estimates for the 1920 budget cycle. What I did is I started with 17-18 to kind of give everybody a point of reference. The main drivers in revenue for a school district are the student base, obviously the ADA, average daily attendance, and the tax base. So for the 17-18 year, we had ADA of 77,997 and a tax base of about 33.5 billion. Fast forward to the 18-19 budget, we developed that in the March, April, May of the year preceding the budget about a year ago, and we drew assumptions of about 5% of the increase on the tax base and ADA of about 77,619 students. You get actual data in the August-September timeframe after you've adopted the budget. What that revealed to us was an increase of about 11% in the tax base. That coupled with a decline in ADA of what we're anticipating to be about 76,580 will produce about a flat revenue relative to budget. In other words, as your tax base increases disproportionately over the prior year, you get a slight benefit known as the lag. That offset the decline in attendance that we're projecting for the year. In looking at the 1920 school year, we're projecting about a 2,000 student decline in our ADA. That is pretty routine, unfortunately, with large urban districts. We're seeing a change in the birth rate, and we're also losing students to the charter school system. So we're going to project a decline of 2,000 students. I spoke with Jeff Law, who is with the Tarrant Appraisal District, and he said between 7% and 8% on the growth of our tax base. So when you put those into the calculation, when you put that into the TEA template, you look at other sources of revenue, we're going to be down about $23 million. Now, I think it's important to understand that I have included right now some Senate Bill 1882. If the board so chooses, that will ultimately be pretty close to what we anticipate revenue to be for next year. I've given a little history on the taxable base for Orth ISD. It was pretty pretty flat for a few years, and then we started seeing growth in 16, 17, 17, 18, which has benefited the district. For 19, again, it's 7.5% based on my discussions with Jeff Law, and then in the subsequent years right now, looking long-term, we're projecting about a 5% increase in the tax base. This slide is comparing Fort Worth ISD enrollment to what is known as the PEAMS Snapshot Day. That is the last Friday in October. It's a good measurement date. It is the state measurement date for instructional FTEs as well as students. You can see that when you compare 17-18 to 18-19, we've declined by about 1,724 students. That is primarily at the elementary level, and that's largely due to the birth rate and the charter school system. So that's the trend that we've seen, and it appears right now that based on some analysis, demographic analysis, and what we're seeing with some of the other large urban districts, that appears to be a pattern that we see continuing into the foreseeable future. I've given a little chart to show what Fort Worth started with in ADA in about 2013 and enrollment. That peaked in last year, although we started seeing a decline in ADA. So our ADA, our actual attendance percentage, has declined and continues to decline, and that is mirrored in this chart. And so, again, we're looking at about a 2,000 student drop. For next year, we've projected 1,000 students for the year past that, and past that it's really kind of hard to see, but the trend is, kind of a decline, unfortunately, in those regards. In the 1920 expenditure planning considerations, 1% in pay raise translates to about $5.2 million, and that's all inclusive. That is salary plus benefits. So a 1% increase would be about $5.2 million, and a 2% would be about $10.4 million. We're looking at raising the beginning teacher pay rate to $54,000. We're estimating about $500,000 for that. And compensation is also going to do some analysis to see where we are relative to other school districts and some of the other steps in the teacher pay grade, and that cost is yet to be determined. Compensation plan alignment adjustments, we're in year 2 of 5 to adjust the pay grades. So outside of the teacher pay grades, we've also got administrative pay grades and other pay grades that compensation is looking to do a market study and market analysis to determine what we need to do to be marketable in those grades as well. Also in consideration of the 1920 are the leadership academies. Right now, we've got the 5. We're looking at, including the Senate Bill 1882, if the board so desires and chooses to go to the Senate Bill 1882 partnership. There are 2 turnaround campuses that we're providing for. And then we've got the mandatory program requirements, special education, bilingual. Those programs continue to grow and have a number of substantial state and federal regulations to comply with. Typically, that means that we have to add locally funded positions to address the needs in those areas. We're looking at program growth, specifically at IM Terrell STEM VPA and World Language Institutes. This is part of the plan over time, and so it looks like we're going to add a 10th grade at IM Terrell and a 12th grade at World Language Institutes. The FTEs, supplies, material costs are still to be determined at this point.
I wanted to go ahead and remind the board that administration issued an RFQ for an operational efficiency study, and we approved Education Resource Strategies as the vendor, and the board did approve that some months ago. They started in October, and the main focus of the project is to do a district-wide analysis of staffing and spending levels throughout the district, and also the duplication of similar services or systems or software utilized throughout the district. So we have uploaded to ERS a multitude, all kinds of data for them to analyze, and they have been doing so since late October. They've been meeting with leadership or individually with certain of the leadership team. They're going to be in district this week doing some focus groups. They're going to be talking to principals and to students and some teachers and some executive directors to get some feedback from them as to their opinion on things. And then they will be back in February, and we're going to be setting up meetings for the board to come by, and they can visit with the ARS, and they can understand the scope of their work and the direction that they're going. So hopefully by sometime in March, we'll have a final report to the board, and hopefully can implement some of their recommendations in the 1920 school year. And so that's where we are in that study.
Wanted to do a quick update on the legislative session. House Bill 21 in the 85th Texas Legislature, first called special session 2017, established Texas Commission on Public School Finance to develop and make recommendations for improvement to the current public school finance system or for new methods of financing schools. Greg Abbott, the attorney, couldn't happen any other day. The governor of the state of Texas created this commission and assigned folks to that in January of this previous school year. The goal was to create long-term systemic balance between state and local share of education. Obviously, over time, what has happened is as the tax bases have risen, the state has benefited from that, and they are contributing less to education. So this is one of the goals of that Public School Finance Commission. Another one is to reallocate outdated or otherwise inefficient allotments, weights, and formulas. A lot of the allotments, weights, and formulas have been developed in the 90s, and they have not been updated since then. They want to increase investment in low-income and other historically underperforming students, significantly reduce the growth rate of property taxes and reliance on recapture. Recapture is when your wealth per WADA is such that you receive more in taxes than you're entitled to keep. They send that money back to the state, and the state distributes that. It's the Robin Hood plan, which has been a point of contention for several years now. They are also creating outcome-based funding, which is new. They want to create new funding for student growth. Some of the proposed savings to the state eliminates the cost of education index. The cost of education index was developed in the early 90s, and it was to try to differentiate the costs of living between various locales and compensate schools or fund schools so that they could address those costs of livings. That elimination of the CEI would save the state about $2.9 billion annually. Also on the table is going to current year values, which has been discussed for a while. It saves the state $1.8 billion. It would cost Fort Worth ISD about $37 million. The elimination of the high school allotment and gifted and talented allotments have also been discussed. New cost to the state, not all inclusive. The increase in cont'd funding and allotment based on poverty spectrum. Obviously, Fort Worth ISD has a concentration of economically disadvantaged. Fort Worth ISD stands to benefit if this is pursued and actually pans out, so that would be a good thing. The third grade reading weighted allotment and outcome funding. Again, it's the outcome funding, it's results-based funding. College career military readiness outcome funding is also on the table, as is a full day pre-K. Next steps, there will be budget workshops and budget updates to the Board of Trustees over the spring, and the public hearing and budget adoption is slated to be on June 25th, 2019. Can I answer any questions?
Trustee Ramos.
Yeah, thank you, President Jackson. I've mentioned before, and I'm hoping that we will take into serious consideration where we are with signing bonuses and stipends for bilingual educators. And thank you for noting the importance of bilingual education and special ed. But as I continue to look to our surrounding districts, we're not as close as they are. And so as much as we say we care and we're understanding that, I think, what is it, Dr. Scribner, about half of our students entering public school education in Fort Worth ISD are coming in speaking another language other than English.
Absolutely, yes.
I have not seen budget adjustments accordingly. So we recognize that that's a population that's booming, but I feel as if it's falling on deaf ears, and I'm hoping that this budget cycle is a little bit more responsive of that population. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Ramos. Trustee Christine Moss.
Thank you, President Jackson. Thank you for the report. It was very concise and understandable, and you did share a lot of things that we had not, I guess, was not shared before. But I have a couple of questions. I wanted to go back to when you talked about 2,000 students would be lost to charter schools next year. That's what you estimated.
Yes, ma'am.
So what do we do about, do we estimate how many new students we'll get in the district? Or when students move into the academies, is it within the district, the academies are filled? Or do we get new students into the district? Or is it just transfers within the district?
Well, we're looking at a cohort survival model for the existing students, and then birth rate retention is a typical projection methodology. So you look at the birth rate over time, you project your retention of that birth rate relative to your students that you get into the school, and then we've done demographic analysis as far as the charters opening in neighboring districts. And so all of that combined, based on the information we've got, points to the fact that in spite of the fact that we do have a birth rate and we are retaining those, we anticipate losing approximately 2,000 students next year.
Oh, yeah, I understand that part, but I was just wondering if we would get in new ninth graders or sixth graders, or do we, when we have the openings in the academies, are those admissions coming from within the district, or are we getting new ninth graders into the district? But I guess you determine that by the birth rate?
Well, the birth rate kind of gets us into the entry level.
Okay.
Birth rate gets us into the entry level, and then they do some analysis based on historical trends and some of what we're seeing with the charters.
Yeah, and if I may, David, I believe that what we do see with some of our charter partners is students will begin elementary in the charter, as you saw with the demographic numbers.
Elementary.
Many of our secondary numbers actually are increasing. So I think what we're in the process of doing is coming to the board this spring from the innovation department with some schools of choice and different configurations that we think will put us in a better competitive position.
Okay, so we will have students being admitted to the district?
Absolutely.
Well, not like
Yeah,
the hospitals.
we will have some, yes.
We want to do that, and while we want great schools across the region, across Fort Worth, irrespective of the kind of school, we do also want to be transparent and honest and demonstrate that charter is not necessarily synonymous with quality. There are some great charters, and there are some charters that are just, quite frankly, not good for students and families. And we want to communicate that our schools, what we have to offer, and actually, if you compare apples to apples in terms of student achievement, I think we are in a position to continue and turn this trend around.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Scribner.
Thank you, Trustee Moss.
I
Trustee
had
Ashley.
two questions.
I'm sorry.
If I
Keep going.
talk too slow. Okay. Thank you. The second question I have is, it's not really a question, but we still have individuals in Fort Worth, our constituents, not understanding how we receive our funds to support education. They still think that we get all of these tax dollars and we get all of this money from the State Department. And the question that was proposed to me is, what are you doing with all of that money? And I explained to them, no matter how we raise taxes, and like I gave a good example, like if we received $6 million a year from taxes, then the State Department just deducts the $6 million from what they give the school system. And so you see, we don't get what the public really thinks we get. And so I don't know how we solve that unless we try and give out some public notices or something. So how do we actually get our funding? You know.
We would have no problem with putting together an explanation of exactly like how we, 101 in school finance is so complicated, we could break it down so it's understandable. And so that the taxpayer really knows exactly, how we're funding and how much their local taxes go to funding our schools, and how little the state is now contributing as a result of that.
Okay, go ahead.
And if I may, Ms. Moss, President Jackson, so it's my understanding, prior to my arrival in Texas, that the school finance formula had the state providing about 60% and the local 40. That has shifted to 40 from the state and 60 locally, particularly in areas like ours where the property values are strong. We do know that Representative Guerin is submitting a bill that would require the state and district portion to be 50-50. So we certainly want to pay attention to that when we're down in Austin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Moss. Trustee Ashley Paz.
Thank you, President Jackson, and thank you for this report. I just have a couple of questions that for things I just want to make sure that I understand correctly. On slide number 5, you don't have to go back to it, but that's the one that breaks down the different expenditures by function. 50 to 59 is support services, non-student based. That's like transportation, food
And
service?
that's all of the maintenance and maintenance,
Okay.
but not transportation. Transportation would be in 34, and support services for the student.
Okay. And would that also include like our capital improvements?
No, it
That's
would
not
only if
included
in
at
fact
all.
we do
Okay.
some capital improvements in function 51.
Okay.
We do the majority of them in 81. So
Okay.
we do a few in 51,
Okay.
but that
So-
would be pretty much.
Oh, I see, capital outlay, okay,
Right.
all right. So it's basically just maintenance then?
Maintenance and safety
Okay.
and security,
Oh,
technology.
okay. Sorry, I'm a slow writer. Okay, and then towards the end, you use the term operational funding a few times, or outcomes-based funding. In the slide number 15, talking about the Public School Finance Commission. I'm assuming that means that the funding will be tied to test scores? Is that accurate, or is it a little more complex than that?
If I may, there is some debate around that. There's going to be a great deal of debate moving forward in the session. So there are some who believe that funding should be tied to standardized test scores, and many who think that's a bad idea. I know that one of the recommendations coming out of the School Finance Commission, which is very familiar with the ACE model out of Dallas and our Leadership Academies model, that they're talking perhaps about the performance being identifying your top teachers and having them perform in historically underperforming schools. So we certainly wouldn't be, I personally would not be in support of a direct STAR test score equals additional funding. I think it's much more complex than that. We certainly want to have a more nuanced conversation. I serve on the Legislative Commission of the Texas Urban Council, and we'll be down in Austin quite a bit this session, so we'll be coming back and sharing updates with the board and taking your input down there as well.
Okay. And then finally, I know that this is more just an informational update, but at what point in the budget development process will we be talking about our budget priorities and how they are tied to our student achievement goals, and in addition, our goals with equity and excellence?
We have any number of meetings, and including board workshops. The first board workshop would be the 5th of March, I believe. And so we certainly welcome any input from the board on their priorities. And so we'll have any number of multiple meetings as outlined on that last page for that input.
Okay, great. Yeah, I actually had the opportunity to go back through Lone Star governance training this weekend, by courtesy of our friends at Leadership ISD. Shout out to all of my friends from our training this last weekend. But that was one of the things that we really stressed in that training is, everything that this board does should be tied back to our student outcomes. And I think that, I know that we haven't always done that in the past. I know last year you did do that, but I'm anxious for us to pursue that conversation early on in this process.
Of course, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Paz. Dr. Sutherland's monitor is not working, so she will be next. Trustee Sutherland?
Thank you, President Jackson. I have several comments and questions. To start with the easy one, your chart on page 5, where you collapse the categories, the function categories, you lose all the variance when you collapse categories. So if you're going to use this, I would like to see every one of them all the way through, like is shown in the bond. I'm sure you've got those because you couldn't collapse them if you didn't. So that's just a small comment. My major problem with our system, as is well known, is that it's very hard. Well, first of all, let me say that some months ago, I asked, and it was said we proceed with having a presentation, a formal presentation not limited to 3 minutes by each of the employee reps. And I don't know where that went, but we haven't seen it. And I would like to see that with all deliberate speed as soon as possible. Can we get that commitment from you, Dr.?
I'm sorry.
I interrupted him.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Are we done? Okay, Dr. Scribner, I would like to know, can we have a presentation by the 3 employee representatives? There's supposed to be a procedure in the bylaws for that. It's been ignored for the last couple of years. I feel it's very important, and it's the core of our operation. I'd like to know if you'd commit to that.
Can we stay on
No, I am on this, and you are out of order. I have the floor.
You have the floor, but I'm presiding, and let's
Point of order.
discuss this. Let's discuss
Counsel?
this at either put it.
agenda? To the agenda?
This is on the agenda. We're having a financial report. I would like to see a presentation by the employee reps when we have the next financial report. That is germane.
Okay.
Okay? So that's my first question. So I don't hear anything from you, so does that suggest you're not willing to commit to that?
Not at this time. We certainly want to review the process, and we have several dates up here, and I can bring that back to the board.
Okay, well, we asked for it back in September or October, so I would appreciate if that would be gotten done. My major problem with the budget is, as I mentioned to several of senior staff, is that the numbers don't seem to make a lot of sense. And we have way too much money in our reserve. I can't tell from this budget what's going on with the reserve because you don't have I'm not complaining because this is really early to have the 1920 budget function categories. But when we voted for the budget, we voted for a budget that showed a 30-some million dollar deficit. And when the audit came out, there was instead a $23 million surplus. And Dr. Scribner has explained to me that this is because of the bond money. But then we see here that the bond money didn't include that much. So I'm having a lot of trouble understanding. The most significant problem with the budget last year was the fact that the budget as presented had a great deal more money in it in the instruction category than was spent, specifically $30 million. I mentioned this to both of you when we met earlier, and also to Dr. Scribner. And so it appears to me that the instructional staff does not know how this is controlled. So I would like to have this very clearly explained, and the next time we have a budget that says we're going to have a 23 million or whatever it was deficit, that I just don't see any excuse for that. If we're going to have a surplus of $23 million, we should not be talking about voting for a budget with a 30-some million dollar deficit. The board is not in any control over this. We have no control whatsoever, and furthermore, it appears that some of the senior staff doesn't really know how their expenditures are controlled. Can you imagine $30 million in the instruction budget went unspent last year, and nobody knows why? That's all I have to say now. I hope that won't happen again. Thank you, President Jackson.
Thank you, Dr. Sutherland. Trustee Anael Luebanos.
Thank you, President Jackson. I want to echo what Trustee Jacinto Ramos said. We want to see more bonus to get more teachers. I see we have a lot of issues getting like Spanish teachers, and we are going outside the state to find them, but maybe we can find them here locally if we offer bonus like other districts around the DFW. And then I noticed there was a 1% increase or 2% increase, but with so much money in reserves, over $200 million, can we do an analysis of 3% for the next budget to see what our numbers will be? I know it's $5.4 million. So 3%, what would be our net balance when we have over $200 million in the reserves? Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Luébanos. Trustee Christine Moss.
President Jackson, just a quick statement. I think we talked about more classes for the 2019-2020 school year, more Spanish classes, our elementary students learning to speak Spanish. I don't know how that will roll out, but I know we had mentioned it or talked about it. So if we're going to do that, do we have money in the budget to recruit Latino teachers?
Okay, we'll look into it. Yes, of course, we'll.
That's a question.
Yes, I think we will certainly look into the recruitment.
Yep, you would look into that
Yes.
for me.
Sure. Yeah, in fact, we are going on a recruitment trip, I think, to Trustee Luébanos' point. We can look outside of the state, in this case in Puerto Rico, but certainly we can look within the state in many of our universities, both here in DFW and across the Southwest.
Thank you, Trustee Moss. Trustee Needham.
Thank you, President Jackson. Ms. Gyro, thank you all for giving us a budget this far ahead, and I was really happy to see how much can you go back to the first page or second? That's got all the what's left at the end of the year. The 213 million
Yes, page 3.
fund balances
Yeah, page 4.
is super. Maybe doesn't need to be quite that much if somebody can find 50 Spanish teachers. Several months ago, Dr. Scribner, we discussed collapsing some programs and some schools. Are we going to have that ready to suggest and modify this budget?
Absolutely. Trustee Needham, members of the board, a couple things that we have hinted at, and certainly in this presentation, the efficiency study, the firm that's taking a look at how we spend our dollars, both from a quality and a quantity perspective. In addition to that, the Facilities Master Plan group will be coming back with some instructional recommendations. So we want to make sure that we have the numbers right and the projections correct so that we can operate as effectively and efficiently as possible. And I will be bringing back to the board in an upcoming board meeting here in the next month or two our recommendation for next year and for 3 to 5 years out. We certainly want to make sure that we're being strategic. We can monitor and adjust. But with the heightened competition, we too need to change what we're doing. Organizations are perfectly designed to get the outcomes they're getting, and we want to turn this enrollment trajectory around.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Needham. Dr. T.A. Sims.
We talked about increasing some programs. There might be some we want to increase too. So I'd like for you to take a look at that.
Absolutely.
Great. Seeing no other questions, thank you all for a great presentation. And if we could get the dates out one more time to the board with regard to the budget workshops,
Yes, I will,
so
President.
that we can be prompted and reminded tomorrow after it's fresh on our minds. Going to number 5 on the agenda, Lone Star Governance, will be a literacy update over goal progress measure, I believe 1.2. Dr. Scribner, would
Yes,
you like
thank you very much. This presentation providing a mid-year update with regard to literacy. We have Charlie Carroll and Sarah Rispey and Cherie Washington, Raul Peña also participating in this presentation. This is consistent with our goal, Lone Star Governance Goal 1 and Progress Measure 1.2. And with that, I'll turn it over to our Chief Academic Officer, Mr. Charlie Carroll. Charlie.
Good evening, Board of Trustees, President Jackson, Superintendent Scribner. We're going to do a mid-year literacy update and go through several components of the 18-19 literacy program that has been put in place and pay particular attention over the course of this presentation to our progress monitoring efforts that we're making with students to make sure that we're making growth and progress. It's critical in Domain 2 of STAR, and you'll see some of that as we make our way through this presentation. The first slide I'd like to get to is what we're doing differently in structured primary literacy. Structured primary literacy is a program that we're working through at 48 district campuses, and those campuses were agreed upon by leadership and academics as campuses that were desperately in need of assistance to build teacher capacity and teaching phonics, working on alphabetic principle and word study, and building a stronger foundation for students as they matriculate toward their 3rd and 4th grade years and begin their experience with state testing. The objective for the structured primary literacy, of course, is to build much better fluency and much higher comprehension in reading than we see with our students who are going forward into 3rd grade now, so that we can meet the board goal of having students go into 3rd grade who are reading at grade level when they go into 3rd grade with great fluency and great comprehension. One of the things we've started doing this year is a monthly training regimen with our teachers and with building administrators. Curriculum conversations are happening on a bi-weekly basis at the PDC, and they have been very productive. It's an excellent question and answer time for teachers, for principals, assistant principals to come in and work with my staff and district staff to get answers about alignment issues, materials issues, and anything else that can help them properly implement the district's curriculum. A couple of other things we've been doing is aligning our waiver days and professional learning days a little better. And I'm going to step aside for a minute and let Dr. Raul Peña, the Chief of Elementary Schools, talk to you for a minute about the last waiver day we had on January the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. President Jackson, members of the board, and Dr. Scribner, it's with great enthusiasm that I share with you the outcomes of the collective impact between principals, curriculum and instruction, and school leadership. Over the past few months, our principals have provided valuable feedback on designing more impactful and meaningful professional learning for our teachers and school leaders alike. Based on the teacher and principal feedback we've received, we were able to integrate writing, the learning model, and all content areas into our January the 8th waiver day of professional learning. The first half of that day focused on providing specific training on how to integrate writing across all content areas, while the second half of the January 8th day was provided to teachers to plan for instruction for the 4th 6 weeks of the school year utilizing curriculum and relevant student data. The qualitative survey teachers took at the end of the day showed high teacher satisfaction on the quality of learning that day. Curriculum and instruction, along with school leadership, will continue to collaborate with our schools to continue to make the work more meaningful and impactful. We've had a great start and look forward to continuing that stride. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Peña. And I will also share with you that, good evening, board first. Good evening, board. President Jackson. Likewise, the recent waiver day yielded positive results and reviews from our survey from secondary teachers as well. We also saw that the waiver day provided an opportunity for secondary ELA teachers, English 1 teachers, and English 2 teachers to work collaboratively with the CNI team and leadership. They were focused on designing lessons that were specific to the first semester in reteaching areas in which students required additional support. Also, professional learning teams, each campus developed instructional planning calendars to support students in interventions and additional small group instructions and other strategies to promote student learning. Last week, we had our secondary principal meeting, and at our secondary principal meeting, we had a collective joint effort between ADQ, between curriculum and instruction, and leadership, and each principal brought with them an instructional leader from the campus and a data analyst so that they could focus on the work centered around progress monitoring for growth for each student in reading and math. With the focus on reading, we've already seen, and our focus on instructional planning and progress monitoring for student growth, we've already seen students in grades 6 through 10 have already outperformed their first performance expected Lexile target. But that said, Mrs. Arispe will take us into our next piece.
All right. So I get to talk a little bit about our instruction with speaking, reading, and writing, and progress monitoring. And the tool that we currently use in the district with the support of the board is Achieve 3000. And so I'm going to bring you a little update about that and how that is helping our students and some good progress that we see. So, board, you may remember that this is used by students in grades 2 through 12. The goal is twice a week that it will be part of the teacher-led classroom instruction. So 5 days a week in the literacy classroom, the teacher is leading instruction. One of those days they would use the Achieve article as the basis for that instruction. We do once every other week in science or social studies. We also have a goal of students scoring 75% or higher on their lessons, and that's for the total of 8 lessons a month. And the other key piece of this is the teacher-led literacy lesson cycle. So as you see, the teacher is key, whether the lesson is using an Achieve article or using something out of a reader or something that the teacher is using a piece of literature. We'll see that they start with a before reading poll. On this part, the teacher facilitates students having a response to the poll question, and I put one on the screen for you. This just happened to be an article that was used the week before where students learned about how the NFL and the American Cancer Society teamed up to fight skin cancer by using sunscreen. So students respond to the poll question, and then they discuss why they responded as they did. Then the teacher will review and introduce vocabulary with students that's pertinent to the article they're about to read and to the content. So this article might be used in a health class, it could be used in a science class, it could be a cause and effect in an English class. Then students read the article, and this is the part where the Achieve program helps us to differentiate because each student receives the article with the same general information at their individual reading level. So there are 11 different reading levels a student could be at. So students in the class who are struggling readers, students who are on-level readers, and students who are really highly proficient can all get information at their own level and then have conversations around that information. After the students read, they respond to some activity questions online. They get immediate feedback as they're doing that. And then the teacher conducts an after-reading poll, and it's honestly the same poll they got before reading, but now kids have a chance to respond again and say whether they have changed their mind based on what they read and learned through reading the article and discussing with their peers. And finally, they respond to a thought question. This is ties to the article and the content area, and writing, brings in writing. So students have a chance to use transactional literacy using speaking, reading, and writing all within that lesson. The after reading poll and the thought question also give the teacher a chance to check for understanding, as we know teachers do in any lesson that they deliver to students. So is monitoring our Lexile growth helping improve our student outcomes? So that's our goal after all. So two key indicators that we monitor are the number of lessons with a goal of the average of 2 per week, and then the average of percent correct at 75% or higher when students respond to the questions. So on an average for the 17-18 school year, Fort Worth ISD students completed 56 lessons. This was up from an average of 46 the year before. So we're doing well on our progress toward getting 2 per week and increasing that number of lessons. For the 75% goal, on average, our students in 17-18 scored 70% on each lesson. That was up from 66% the prior year. So students are also performing better and engaging with their teachers as a part of these lessons. We also want to look at the student increasing their individual outcome or their Lexile level. So on average for the 17-18 year, students increased by 105 Lexile points from the beginning of year to the end of year. And that was up from an 80-point gain the year before. So regardless of where students start their educational journey in reading, we want them to grow as readers. And this is showing that we are increasing that. Then when we look at those high fidelity students, the students who reached both of those goals, 2 lessons a week and 75% or higher, we see even greater gains. So students in 2017-18 scored or had a 151% point, Lexile point gain from beginning of year to end of year. That's over 3 times their expected, and that was up from 127 the prior year. We also wanted to look if Lexile growth is correlated to STAR performance. So will increasing Lexile help increase performance on the STAR reading test? And so we have this correlation diagram before you that it shows that it is highly correlated if in a positive way. So students who increase in Lexile will increase in their STAR reading performance. And you rarely see a plot like that, so if you like to look at those kind of things, this was an exciting one to see. That high correlation. We found that 95% of students with that high fidelity use actually passed their STAR test in 2018, their STAR reading test. Whether they passed at approaches, meets, or masters, those students were successful on STAR. This also held true at the higher level, the college and career ready level. So for higher readers, there was a 10-point increase from beginning of year to end of year in kids performing at that college, career, and military readiness level. And finally, I want to just give you kind of a mid-year update where we are right now. Board, you have pushed our thinking to make sure that we are not only monitoring progress as a district as a whole for all students, but that we're also looking regularly at how students are performing in their student groups. So this slide shows you the average Lexile gain for the first semester of the 2018-19 school year by student group. You'll see all students, they had a 51-point increase, Hispanic 51, African American 48, white 57. Our English language learners had the greatest increase in Lexile from the beginning of year in the first semester. They increased 59 points, which is very encouraging. And then finally, our special ed, students served by special education had a 38-point Lexile increase. The numbers in the center of the bars there are just for your reference of the size of those student groups. So they are not all the same size. The largest group is Hispanic, white is the smallest group there for our race ethnicity. So happy to bring that to you, and we'll be coming back with more information as we end the year, but we feel like this shows that we will be on track to meet or exceed the gains that we saw last year in reading.
And we know that the board is anxious to see what structured primary literacy is all about, and we fully intend to come back to the board at our next meeting, one of the meetings in February, and have that conversation about the steps that NIHouse Literacy is having in Fort Worth ISD and working with us to improve primary literacy. But I think it's appropriate also to publicly thank the board for the support for the 2 NIHouse cohorts that are currently in place, and looking forward to adding campuses in the 1920 school year. and also for support of Achieve 3000. Results are indicating that groups are trending in positive directions, and we see some things coming out of these results that we think are very positive moving for us this year and into next year. So that concludes the report, and whichever one of us is appropriate is certainly willing to answer questions that you may have.
Thank you. Trustee Christine Moss.
Thank you, President Jackson. I have a question, and it's about Achieve 3000, because I want to understand it. When, it was page 20.
1 through 12.
When students pass reading on the STAR test, does that mean the students are reading on grade level?
That's a great question, Ms. Moss. Thank you. That 95% on that particular slide represents students passing at any level, approaches, meets, or masters. Our goals are set around the meets level, so we want students to pass the test at those higher performing levels, but the state gives us those 3 different performance cuts.
They do, but I wanted to know if they're learning to read. And that's because I'm ignorant of this, so I just want to know the results. Achieve 3000. Does that give you any idea of what grade level the students are on?
It does give us, it gives us information about how they're growing in Lexile level and how that is related to their STAR performance. So we can tell, based on their Lexile level, whether they're likely to pass at the approaches level or at one of those higher levels. So the answer to your question is yes, there's not a direct one-to-one number correspondence, but there is a relationship there that teachers watch along with all of the other information they have about students.
Okay. Perfect. On page 13, what grade level were those questions?
Sorry, I'm flipping to page 13.
That's okay. It might have been on there, I just didn't see it. And it doesn't have to be on there, I'm just trying to see.
Yes, is that where
This works.
the part of the before reading poll in that Achieve lesson?
Yeah, when they read, and then they come back to see if they comprehend, and then the questions and like that.
Good question. So the children are reading on their instructional level, wherever that is, regardless of their grade level, and then the questions are written at that same appropriate level for the student. So if I'm a student that's performing right now, I'm struggling reader, my questions may be the same, but the wording of the questions will be accessible for me. And then the same is true for a highly proficient reader.
Okay, no, I was just trying to see if I could answer the questions, what grade level I would be on.
Okay, so you want to go through a lesson.
I was looking at those questions.
Very
and
good.
wondered if it.
I got $5 on that one, you will.
We, if you really are interested in doing that, we could certainly do that. I've done that before
No,
just
thank
because
you.
I was interested.
I'll follow the children. No.
It is interesting to see those, though.
No, but it's interesting, we get so much from Achieve 3000, but still we can't just look at it and say, well, this kid is not reading on grade level.
Charlie, could you walk us very briefly through what a week would look like for a teacher using Achieve 3000?
In our system, we have set up, Dr. Scribner, we have 4 days direct instruction and 1 class period, 1 time that your teaching would be devoted to Achieve per week as they walk through. One of them is in an ELAR classroom. One of them would also be in a social studies or a science classroom where they can deal with different forms of nonfiction, fictional text. And so the trick with it is to understand that the lessons themselves and the articles themselves are written into the curriculum. And so there are pieces that are in there that you just click into and go into the system so that you know it can be part of your instructional methodology that you're working through that week. And so it is, It's built into it because we did not want to go in and build a curriculum that had unreasonable time increments in there and had an addition to it without making the time in the curriculum to address it.
Thank you.
Trustee Needham.
Charlie, or whoever, are we addressing writing in any of these lessons or the Achieve 3000?
Ms. Needham, the Achieve, if Achieve 3000 is done with the instructional process that's described in here, there is a writing component to it. Yes, there is. And if it's done, it can be done fairly well in terms of answering short questions and then extended. We also, one of the things that Dr. Pena was talking about earlier, which was our January 8th day, that we worked with every campus and every teacher, part of that was an engaged literacy strategy, that we're working with students to more thoroughly engage with text, that every time they go in and work with the text, it's a reading and writing exercise, that they're responding and writing, reading actively, and that there are things that they have to do instead of staying passive while they're engaging with text. So what we focused on the 8th was exactly what you're talking about, is can we focus on writing instruction to help push ourselves forward in that area? Because as we identified at the end of last year, certainly an area of need.
Wasn't that our lowest area?
Yes, ma'am.
Do we do some other things to help with the writing?
It is written into the curriculums, and the way that it's written into the curriculums is such that it is usually a literary response or an expository paper that's in there that students are responsible for. So yes, it's in there quite a bit. And the trick with that, Ms. Needham, is making sure that as we're teaching reading and writing, we're doing it reciprocally. They feed off of each other instead of having them separated from each other. Students need to read every day, they need to write every day. And so that's the way the curriculums are written.
That's great. Hopefully they'll go up this year bunch.
We did.
Very interesting,
Yes, ma'am.
thanks to each of you.
Thank you, Trustee Needham. Trustee Sutherland.
I would just like to support the request that we be able to have grade levels. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The correlation between the Lexiles and the grade levels is firmly established, Trustee Moss, and you could find it online, and so can they, but they refuse to give them to us. And so I asked for that several years ago. I wanted to add, though, that I generally support this whole thing. It seems to me that it's made a more organized pursuit of reading ability, which is a great asset.
Thank you.
However, I do think that you should give us the grade levels, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Sutherland. Trustee Ashley Paz.
Thank you, President Jackson. Can you go to slide number 19? It's so cool, I just want to look at it again. Okay, so over here on the left-hand side?
Y-axis, the
Yes.
left.
What is the benchmark there for meets grade level?
Right.
Or is it consistent across all grades?
It is not consistent
Okay.
across grades. The scale score on STAR is within grade level.
Okay.
The passing scale score, the scale goes up across reading from grade 3 through 8. It's a consistent scale, but where passing is for each grade level is different.
Okay, so this doesn't actually correlate to what the STAR score is, it's the passing. I'm sorry, I'm trying to
That's okay.
I'm trying
I
to
think that
understand.
an easy way to understand it, aside from grade level passing, is to say that as you increase your scale score in your Lexile score, your scale score increases correspondingly. So that's what the positive correlation is talking about. They're related. They may not cause it, but they're
Yeah.
tightly related.
Yeah, I understand that, and I think it's really interesting how it kind of like has a little kick up in the middle. But I'm just trying to, I guess what I'm trying to understand is, of these, at what point is it the students who are actually hitting that meets grade level mark? So that information, I can't that's not shown on.
The way that that's constructed, you cannot see that, but if you are interested in what the meets grade level cut is for each grade level, I can easily provide that for you.
Okay, yeah, I would definitely be interested
Yeah,
in
we
that.
can send that to everybody so that you could all see it.
I think that'd be great, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Trustee Paz. Trustee Needham?
A report on how many kids are on grade level?
Using our Achieve data,
Whatever you want to use for, say, third grade, are they on read level or are they not?
we can show you, what we can easily show is where they are based on their Lexile band. It doesn't equate exactly to grade level. There's a broad band and it overlaps Lexile from grade level to grade level, but we can show you how many kids. If you'll allow me, I don't like to say put kids in buckets, but in data we say that a lot. So there are 4 buckets that Achieve will place you into, and we could easily show you that.
What are the buckets? What are the 4 buckets?
The buckets are the below, the approaching, the meets and masters for STAR, but for Achieve, they are approaching meeting and then the CCMR. So those top 2 are considered on the track for college, career, and military readiness, and the bottom 2 are not. So we can show that to you a couple of ways.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Trustee Needham. Okay, Dr. Sutherland? Dr. Sutherland's screen does not work.
Yeah, it's hard for me to do.
She has
Just let me
some
say
hands
again,
raised.
okay? There are something like 400 studies comparing Lexiles to grade equivalents. You can easily tell the students what the student's grade equivalent is if you want to. It isn't true that you have to use buckets. You can see those numbers. Just Google Lexile to grade equivalent studies and you'll see. And so this business that we can't do grade equivalents is not true. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sutherland. I just have a quick comment and then a question, and then I think I need to come meet with somebody because I have some ideas about stats that nobody else wants to hear about, and I may be wrong, so I don't want to embarrass myself. Yes, ma'am. I think the most salient thing is we're seeing progress in reading for our kids, and that's great, but how do we keep the word that you guys love to use, fidelity, with this program and keep excitement going? And on the other hand, do more lessons equate to children loving learning more, or is there a sweet spot where we need to cut this off? I don't know. So what are your future plans? What have you learned? And how do we keep this going? Because the results do sound good.
Ms. Jackson, I think the answer to your question, most direct answer to your question is no. I think having a well-rounded curriculum that exposes students to a number of different experiences in reading and writing and promotes creativity and promotes their ability to think critically in different venues, using different materials, is the way to develop the students that we want to see moving through our system. I think when we have conversations with some of our professional staff who would make that same assertion, well, if 2 lessons a week is good, then 9 or 10 is like great, right? They'll be reading geniuses. No, they won't, and not even the company will advocate that. And so that is one of the things that we have worked with to build some understanding, and that's the purpose of a curriculum, is to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that we promote kids grade level to grade level who have a real affection for reading and writing.
Cool. Thank you. You all, no more questions, so thank you all so much, and we will move forward to public comment. At this time, we'll hear public comment. Let me remind you that because of restrictions by the Texas Open Meetings Act, board members may not engage in a verbal exchange about a subject that has not been posted. We will listen and take notes, but the board is prohibited from responding to any inquiries made during a board meeting on any topic not posted on the agenda. However, the board may reply with, 1, a statement of specific factual information given in response to the inquiry, 2, recitation of existing policy in response to the inquiry, or 3, direct the person to visit with staff about the issue. While the board listens to concerns of a general nature and issues of common individual concern, the board will not hear complaints about specific individual employees or public officers during the public comment session. Speakers shall refrain from mentioning names of individual employees or public officers during their comments. Any employee, parent, or other member of the public is asked to comply with the appropriate grievance policy to have a complaint heard pursuant to the applicable board policy. In accordance with board policy BED local, speakers shall have a 3-minute time limit, and we ask that you please observe this rule. Furthermore, a speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another speaker. Delegations of 5 or more persons shall appoint one person to present their views before the board with the time not to exceed 5 minutes. I want to thank each of you for being here tonight. And our first speaker is Rodney Wade, and our second is Dr. Robert Rogers.
Good evening. Thank you, President Jackson, members of the board, Superintendent Scribner. My name is Rodney Wade. I live at 1404 South Adams Street in Fort Worth, Texas. As you know, Texas. I am president of the Fort Worth ISD Special Education PTA. I am chair of the Fort Worth ISD Special Education Advisory Committee. On behalf of the Special Education PTA, I would like to acknowledge the leadership shown by our Assistant Superintendent of Special Populations and congratulate her on her retirement. Several months ago, I was complaining to a friend about all the work we need to do to improve special education. She gave me the gift of perspective and reminded me that sometimes we need to look back to see how far we have come. And we have come a long way. Students today have opportunities unimaginable 15 years ago. More students are able to learn with their peers, to participate in extracurricular activities, and they have access to technology that literally gives them a voice. For more than a decade, she has had the impossible task of not only overseeing the special education department, but making sure every employee of this district understands the unique needs of our students. Her role is part leader, educator, manager, negotiator, counselor, lawyer, policy expert, and she has the expectation to allocate resources with an extremely limited budget. She has greeted my frequent complaints with an impressive level of professionalism and respect, which I greatly admire and I aspire to. Special education is undergoing a transformation, and Dr. Sheffield has led us through many changes. But more importantly, she has laid a path that future leaders can follow. I hope you will join me in recognizing her accomplishments and commit to continuing the work that she has started, and to make sure that when we speak of all students, we truly mean all students. Thank you for your service and your commitment to our students.
Dr. Sheffield, I think it's okay for me to speak on behalf of the board. Thank you for everything. Dr. Rogers.
For letting me have a little bit of time. This could not be a board meeting better designed for my specific interests, as I think you all know. Working as a reading partners tutor and working to build the tutor group and to understand how we as community volunteers can impact our schools. I'm always looking at data. I put together this report that I've given you based on the data that's available on the Read Fort Worth website. It's on the data dashboard. You can look at every school in the district for 7 years now and look at the third grade proficiency results based in a percent. And every time I say percent about students, I want to say that percent really represents a student. So we can say that the district is reading at about a 33% proficiency in third grade right now. That's 1 out of 3 students reading at a level that we could predict that they're going to succeed in the rest of their school and college and career and military readiness. If they're below that level, that's going to be a more struggling student. So what I've done is I've compiled this information because I wanted to be able to look at it more quickly. I don't want to look through each individual school on the website. So as you can see, I've grouped all of the elementary schools by your trustee district. And there are different columns here. So in the 7-year low, that's the lowest percent achieved by a particular school in the 7 years reported. There's a 7-year high. I picked 2 specific cut points, 25%. I hope that we would all agree that being below 25% proficiency would be unacceptable. I picked 50% begrudgingly. I don't think any of us would say that out of a class of 24 students, that only 12 of them reading proficiently as they go into 4th grade would be what we would want. But based on our current level of performance, that is, I have to use something that we can actually get a number in. So you'll see those columns, the number of years. Look, if we look at District 1, Diamond Hill had an 18% low, a 43% high, 3 years below 25%, 0 years above 50%. So you can look at each school in the district. I know that all of you as trustees understand that you are responsible for all of the students in the district and not just in your specific district. But I think when you're talking with your constituents that it's helpful to know what's happening in your individual schools. The question is always, what are the definitions? Proficiency in this report is meets standard.
Thank you.
And since literacy was on the agenda tonight, we could have a conversation. I know it's not typical of the board to talk back to members, but it was on the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Penny Askew and Stephen Poole. And our final speaker will be Mr. Cleveland Harris.
Good evening, President Jackson, board members, Dr. Scribner. I'm just here to chat a little bit about gifted kids in our district. So I have gifted kids. I also have SPED kids. So I didn't even know we had a PTA for those kids. I'd really like you guys to look at what we can do for the gifted kids more. And I found out recently, as I was discussing this with someone who works for the district, and I told them I wanted to come here, and I'd been meaning to come for months, and my Tuesday nights kept not coinciding with yours. They said not every school in the district even has a program for the gifted kids. And I'm thinking, you know, these are the kids that need something to stimulate them and to meet their potential. And one little thing can make all the difference for a kid as they go through the system. So I would just really like you guys to look at what we are and are not doing for the gifted kids and what we can change so that they're meeting their potential as they grow up and as they become the ones who take care of us when we're all old and decrepit. And it's hard to find things in this district, so I'm going to segue. I've got like 3 different things to go over with you all tonight. It's hard sometimes to find, even when I know what I'm looking for on the website, something for my gifted kid, whatever. Sometimes it's hard to find, and it's gotten much better in the last few years, but I get all the emails, I follow the web pages, I follow the Facebook, and I'm a typical parent. So if I'm not knowing it, then parents who are even busier and even more overwhelmed than I am, they don't know. And you guys have a lot of great programs in this district that people don't know about. You guys should be tooting your own horn and letting everybody know so that we can say, oh, hey, neighbor, your kid should be in this program. And then in my last minute, this is funny, I want y'all to know that dyslexia and dysgraphia are not the same diagnosis. They are not the same learning disability, and I haven't called those departments this year because I gave up. I can count on my finger and toes how many months I have kids left in Fort Worth ISD. But my kids do not have dyslexia. When I would insist on them being tested, y'all would come out and you would test them for dyslexia, even though I kept saying dysgraphia, even though I would be reading from the Yale Medical School's list of symptoms of dysgraphia. And the people, very nice, you have great employees, saying, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. And then they would say, you have a very bright kid, they don't have dyslexia. And I'd be going, yes, I know they don't have dyslexia. I think they have dysgraphia. So tying in with literacy for tonight, those are two different brain things going on. And some kids have both, but not every kid has both.
Thank you. Mr. Poole and Mr. Harris.
Good evening, Ms. Jackson, members of the board, and Dr. Scribner. UEA conducted a survey of teachers in the fall, asking them questions pertinent to their school experience and their experience with the district. And tonight I'm sharing with you the overall district results. I have them broken down by campus that I'll email your schools individually for the districts you represent. But there's a couple of questions on here I want to highlight tonight after poring over the 39 questions. If you look at question 20, which is on page 5, the discipline questions really begin. We asked, discipline is enforced consistently and effectively at my campus. Over 64% of teachers disagreed with that statement. And on question 21, unruly students are not permitted to disrupt the learning environment. Over 66% of teachers disagreed with that statement. 36% of respondents strongly disagreed with that statement. Now, you conduct your own teacher survey. You used to ask these two questions. You abandoned it 2 years ago. I guess people got tired of hearing the answers. But 2 years ago in your own survey, it was only about 50-50. So you can see even a further shift of the experiences of teachers and students in the classroom when it comes to unruly students. At the very end, questions 38 and 39 deal with the 8-period day. Question 38, the 8-period day has made positive academic results for my school. Over 77% of teachers disagree, and 55.65% strongly disagree. And when asked, I support the continuation of the 8-period school, over 72% disagree, and 52.88% strongly disagree. Teachers have already been told, we made a 2-year commitment to the 8-period day. We're moving forward with 8-period next year. I think we need to pause and have a conversation about the 8-period day. Looking at the comments that I'll share with you, the secondary teachers over and over in the comments said, the 8-period day has caused more discipline and disruption in our schools. Most teachers are teaching more classes. The promised class size reduction did not occur. They're teaching more students. And now you have 8 passing periods where students can get in trouble in the hallway, which bleeds over into the classroom. So here we are, all but one of our IR schools are in the secondary, and the teachers are telling you the 8-period day is not contributed to the academic achievement of the school. Again, we need to pause, have a conversation so schools can get it right for next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poole.
I would just like to make a statement for Mr. Poole. Point of clarification. Thank you so much for this information. We all represent all of Fort Worth ISD schools, so I would like to actually see all of the campuses broken down. Thank you.
Mr. Cleveland Harris.
Good evening. I'm here today about an article that was put out last week on the YMLA and the construction that is going on, from a transformation from building a new school to renovating the old school. I've received a lot of calls from some serious parents that had bought into the bond package. And it was only because YMLA would receive a new school. Now, the parents are upset about how things are being twisted around within the last 2 bond packages. We didn't receive in our district the things that we were supposed to get for this school, being that it's one of the top-notch schools in Fort Worth. It was changes that were made, and I'm asking this board before you make a vote next month to have a continuance and also put together a citizen oversight committee to where parents, citizens, community leaders, and those who are school board members or those who work with Fort Worth ISD to elaborate a little bit more to what's going on, because there's a big disconnection to actually what is going on. Now, we had an add-on to the school, which is really not safe, because between the cafeteria and the school, if rain and ice or snow hits the ground, the children are leaving the school and have to walk to the cafeteria, an accident can happen. So I'm not happy with looking what the specifics of what remodeling that has been done. And I think it is kind of poorly that those who are in charge of that has not thought this thing out. If we're doing tie-ons to the structure of the building, then we should be able to recognize the safety precautions that needs to be taken. Second, if you're going to pull permits on structured buildings, the city requires you to pull permits. That means that you have to upgrade everything that is done, be it electrical, plumbing, whatsoever. We're talking about old buildings that is infested with materials that is outdated that can put harm with children breathing this stuff. So where are you going to in-house our student when you do this remodeling? Because we're talking about asbestos. This building is over 60 years old. So we know that this is going on. So we asking for a continuance on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts this evening. To each of our speakers, thank you for being here. At this time, we will recess and reconvene in the board conference room. In accordance with the open meetings law, the board opened the meeting at 5:33 PM in the boardroom with quorum present, recessed open session in the boardroom, and is now reconvened at 7:27 PM in open session in the board conference room with quorum present. As board president, I make the following statement in accordance with the board policy BBFA local. This is a reminder to all board members of the legal conflict of interest requirements and disclosure requirements you may have for matters under consideration on this agenda for this meeting. If required by law, board members shall recuse themselves from all discussion and shall abstain from voting on any matter pertaining to any such disclosure. And now I ask, are there any questions regarding the consent agenda items on page 4? I see no questions at all. Would you guys like to move straight into executive? Okay, this concludes our discussion of consent agenda items. No DVTs for this group. You guys will be healthy.
Reinvent your learning environment at the Fort Worth Technology Conference 2019, January 26th, 8 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. at Southwest High School. Explore the latest technology innovations, network with other educators, experience the digital playground, escape room, and breakout sessions. This year's keynote speaker, Adam Bello, was named the 2014 Innovator of the Year by the Academy of Education, Arts, and Sciences. Registration is waived for Fort Worth ISD educators. Pre-registration outside the district is $35. For registration information, visit fwisd.org/FWTC.
Is everybody ready? Yes! Let's play Whiz Quiz. Are you guys ready to win? Yeah! Well, let's play then. Take it away, Jeff.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, contestants, it's time for Whiz Quiz.
McLean.
Oh, Graham.
Correct. All right, way to go, guys. The end of round 4.
Welcome to the Fort Worth ISD Whiz Quiz. I'm Esmeralda Garcia, your host for tonight's middle school matches. First up, McLean Middle takes on Daggett Montessori. And asking the questions, CBS 11 meteorologist Jeff Jameson. Jeff, get us going on round 1.
All right, Esmeralda, thank you so much. It's good to be back this year for Whiz Quiz and excited to see all you smart kids being able to answer these tough questions. It's always fun to be a part of this competition. So we'll hear from each of the players here in just a minute, but I also want to introduce everybody who's at the table with me. I'll start to my far left. Patricia Martinez is our assistant scorekeeper tonight, along with Norma Burks, who's right to my left, who's the district coordinator of UIL and academic activities and Whiz Quiz director. And to my right is Jason Martinez. He's with Carter Riverside High School, a teacher there. And then resetting our buzzers right in front of us in the middle there is Fort Worth ISD student Kaylee Martinez. So good to have everybody here. Before we start asking questions and getting answers from you guys, let's hear from you. Will you introduce yourself? We'll start here with McLean and work our way over to Daggett Montessori.
Hi, I'm Natalie Hudson.
My name is Shreyas St. Paul.
I'm Brian Jung.
I'm Jesse Durham.
I'm Ben Gunn.
Okay, Daggett.
I'm Maya Perez.
I'm Jackson Shear.
I'm Lyra Pfeiffer.
I'm Caden Harmon.
I'm George Gouldy.
All right, teams, thank you so much. I know everybody's anxious to get started. So we're going to be playing toss-up rounds this evening, as everybody is probably aware. Questions are worth 10 points each. You get 4 seconds to answer after buzzing in. Is everybody ready to go at this point?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, let's get started with our first toss-up question. This Italian opera is based on a French play by Pierre Beaumarchais. For 10 points each, name this opera whose title character introduces himself in the aria. Oh, am I on the wrong question? Goodness, I'm so sorry. I jumped ahead. My fault. Went right to the wrong tab. Here's the toss-up question. I apologize. Let's reset. This country's opposition leader, Shehbaz Sharif, alleged that its 2018 general election was rigged. The forced conversion of the Kalash people has been criticized by this country's prime minister, the former cricketer Imran Khan. For 10 points, what country disputes Kashmir with India? McLean.
China.
That's incorrect. Time. The answer is Pakistan. Pakistan. All right, next toss-up question. Oh, we go to the bonus.
No, well, nobody got it right, did they?
Huh?
Nobody got it
Oh,
right.
that's right.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you for...
All right, toss-up question. Here's number 2 toss-up question. This battle occurred at the same time as a naval battle at Artemisium. During this battle, Ephialtes betrayed the losing side, which included hundreds of hoplites. For 10 points, name this 480 BC battle in which Leonidas led a group of roughly 300 Spartans against the Persians.
McLean.
The Trojan War.
No, that is incorrect. Daggett?
The Battle of Athens.
No, we were looking for the Battle of Thermopylae. All right, next toss-up question. According to the Bible, this island's city of Syracuse was visited by the Apostle Paul. This island's capital and most populous city is Palermo. Mount Etna is the tallest active. McLean.
Sicily.
Correct. Sicily is right. And now we will go to the bonus questions that we previewed earlier. So McLean, here is the first bonus question. This Italian opera is based on a French play by Pierre Beaumarchais for 10 points each. A. Name this opera whose title character introduces himself in the aria, Lago al Factorum. Time. All right. Daggett, you have the opportunity.
Les Mis.
No, the answer is The Barber of Seville. All right, back to McLean for the second bonus question. This composer wrote The Barber of Seville. The overture to his opera William Tell is famous as the theme music to The Lone Ranger.
Figaro.
That is incorrect. No, looking for Rossini. All right, back to McLean for the third bonus question. This man is the title character of The Barber of Seville. The title of a Mozart opera refers to this man's marriage. Time. Daggett? Time. We're looking for Figaro. All right, back to our toss-up questions. On 2 occasions, a villain in this film is crushed by a giant bell. This film's protagonist comes... Daggett.
Coco.
Correct. Good job. And now here is your bonus question for Daggett. At the start of this film, the title character utters the word rosebud before dying. For 10 points each. Name this 1941 film, often considered the greatest of all time, which stars Orson Welles as the title newspaper magnate.
Citizen Kane.
Correct. All right, next question. In a 1973 Peanuts comic strip, this domineering character spoils the ending of Citizen Kane as her younger brother Linus watches it for the first time.
Lucy.
Correct. And the last bonus question. This TV show parodied Citizen Kane in an episode depicting a boat named Nosebud, which Candace tries to prevent the title stepbrothers from building.
Phineas and Ferb.
Correct. All right, good job, Daggett, with the bonus questions. Let's go back to our toss-up questions for both teams. There are this many doors in the Monty Hall problem. This is the smallest number of non-collinear points needed to divide a circle. This number is the first Mersenne prime and the only prime triangular number. McLean.
3.
Correct. And now we go to bonus questions for McLean. Breakdown of tissue in these organs can lead to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. For 10 points each. Name these primary organs of the human respiratory system.
Lungs.
Correct. In this disease of reactive airways, inflammation leads to coughing and wheezing. What is this disease that is often treated with inhaled albuterol?
Asthma.
Correct. Pneumonia is an accumulation of fluid in these small air sacs of the lungs. They are the site of gas exchange during respiration. Taggett?
Bronchi.
No, we were looking for alveoli. All right, we'll take a break right there. Good job, guys. We'll take a breather and come back with round number 2 in just a few minutes.
Estamos en Fort Worth, así es como lo vemos todos los días. Pero si se acercan más, verán que esto también es Fort Worth ISD. Nuestras 148 escuelas, una en cada vecindario, están preparando a los estudiantes para el éxito en la universidad y para las carreras del mañana. Entonces no importa quién eres, qué haces o dónde vives, aquí perteneces. Fort Worth ISD es un gran lugar por muchas buenas razones, pero no solo confíes en nuestra palabra. La Agencia de Educación de Texas dice que nuestros recientes logros académicos están entre los mejores. Esta agencia nos nombró uno de los 2 distritos más importantes de Texas por crecimiento positivo en rendimiento académico de un año a otro. Mejoramos en todas las áreas, incluyendo grandes aumentos en el porcentaje de estudiantes que leen a nivel de grado. Y hemos reducido a la mitad el número de campus evaluados con bajo rendimiento. Entre los que avanzaron para cumplir con el estándar están 5 escuelas que se reconstituyeron como academias de liderazgo. Después de invertir tiempo, talento y dinero a estas escuelas, incluida una donación de $1 millón de Fundación Rainwater, las ganancias de rendimiento académico en los 5 campus fueron impresionantes. También existe nuestro compromiso con la equidad, reconocido a nivel nacional. La mesa directiva de Fort Worth ISD recibió el premio a la excelencia escolar urbana de 2018 por el Consejo de Juntas de Educación Urbanos, donde la equidad educativa es una de las medidas principales. También están nuestras becas recibidas. La clase de 2018 obtuvo un récord de $102.6 millones en becas. Eso es un aumento de 36 millones de hace solo 3 años. En la primera etapa, nuestros 4,000 alumnos más pequeños están teniendo un gran comienzo en el pre-kinder de Fort Worth ISD. Y sus padres los pudieron inscribir en línea, en lugar de esperar en una fila, ya que nuestro distrito se convirtió en un proceso de inscripción completamente en línea. También tenemos este espacio justo aquí, la nueva Academia Untitled para STEM y las Bellas Artes. Desde el primer día, este campus estaba lleno de energía creativa. En laboratorios, un espacio de creación increíble. Y en el lado de las Bellas Artes, en estudios, salas de práctica y una sala de espectáculos de clase mundial. Y hablando de participar, Cowan Humanities Academy at IM Terrell hace que todos queramos volver a la escuela. Cuando se estaba terminando la construcción de IM Terrell, ya estaba en marcha un nuevo programa de mejoras de capital. Gracias a ustedes, los votantes, nuestro bono de 2017, el cual marcó récord, está transformando los espacios de aprendizaje en todo el distrito. La comunidad de Fort Worth está unida acerca de la lectura con Read Fort Worth, que está haciendo un excelente trabajo al alinear a sus socios recursos y estrategias al apoyar la iniciativa de lectura del distrito 100 para el 25, para que todos los estudiantes de tercer grado lean a nivel de grado para el año 2025. Dirigida por la alcaldesa Betsy Price y Matt Rose, es un ejemplo perfecto de impacto colectivo para obtener resultados más grandes y más rápidos, especialmente donde más se necesita. Como hemos dicho antes, no podemos hacerlo sin ti. Aquí perteneces. More than 87,000 students, each one unique. Are you looking for a high school education as individual as you are? Then keep watching. Some notable graduates of Fort Worth ISD are with me in the studio to tell you about Gold Seal programs and schools of choice. The next 3 minutes could change your life.
Gold Seal is all about finding the pathway that matches your interests, your skills, and your goals. Gold Seal categories, where do I start? There's engineering, aviation, early college, high school, broadcast journalism, culinary arts. Jeff, help me out.
There's health science, world languages, fine arts, government and law, digital gaming, and more. A lot more. Something for everyone.
And something really special with on-the-job, real-world learning, classes taught on college campuses, and opportunities for internships, licenses, certifications, and college credits. Lots of college credits.
A great example, early college high schools. These programs give you the opportunity to graduate with a high school diploma and your associate degree, tuition free.
And you can earn college credits several ways, depending on the program you choose. However you do it, you can potentially save thousands of dollars in college costs.
And if you need to work to pay for college, Gold Seal programs are really golden. Take the aviation program. Students can earn hours toward their airframe mechanic certification and college credits all at the same time.
Why is this a big deal? Think about it. Wouldn't you rather have a job that pays about $18 an hour instead of $8? You know, I really see the Gold Seal program as a pipeline. I would, though I'm an engineer. But they really are a pipeline to supply companies with a well-prepared workforce.
If you're interested in the engineering pipeline, there are several great Gold Seal programs to choose from. Programs that emphasize advanced academics, especially math and science.
Among them, our new I Am Terrell Academy for STEM and Visual and Performing Arts. That's a learning opportunity at the highest level.
Bottom line, the pathway you choose will engage you, challenge you, and give you a head start on your bright future.
My pathway, broadcast journalism and media technology. That was me a few years ago, telling you how my Gold Seal program helped me get a great college scholarship. Now I can say that right out of college, I got a great job too. I'm a major market TV news photojournalist.
The district also has 2 outstanding single-gender schools. That's me, going into the Young Women's Leadership Academy as an 8th grader. The support I received from the YMLA staff and students was awesome. Now I'm here at Texas A&M, where I'm majoring in political science.
We go to YMLA.
That's the Young Men's Leadership Academy.
Oh wow, that was 7th grade. And now we're in high school, still loving YMLA.
And learning all we need for success.
I want to be a pediatric heart surgeon. I remember how excited I was starting out at TAPS, the Texas Academy of Biomedical Sciences. Now I'm living my dream as a college student here at the University of North Texas, majoring in biology and about to apply to grad school.
What's your dream career? What problem do you want to help solve? We've got a Gold Seal program to get you there. It's your choice. Learn more at fwisd.org/choice or call 817-814-2580. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all our social media.
Every school year is big, but 3rd grade is pivotal. Suddenly you're multiplying, dividing, plus you're at a major turning point in reading.
I want to make sure everyone's ready. Put your foot
3rd grade is when you transition from learning to read to reading to learn.
Would you please?
Everything.
The Statue of Liberty stands on an island. It was to be a present from the
She would be a symbol of the freedom.
But experts say only 1 in 3 children in the U.S. reads on grade level. It's a national problem with a Fort Worth solution. Welcome to Read Fort Worth Phase 2. While third grade is a big milestone, pre-K is where children often begin to see themselves as learners. Pre-K is fun and games, but make no mistake,
In pre-K, we learn rules, writing, letters, counting, science, reading.
think of it as basic training for kindergarten readiness and success in third grade reading. Childhood literacy can determine a child's performance in all subjects for years to come. In fact, children with low reading skills at the end of third grade are 4 times more likely not to finish high school.
Many of our students don't start the educational race at the educational starting line. Some call this an achievement gap, but really, it's an opportunity gap. And we can fix an opportunity gap with a comprehensive effort like Read Fort Worth.
Led by Fort Worth Mayor Betsy Price, BNSF Chairman Matt Rose, and Fort Worth ISD Superintendent Kent Scribner, Read Fort Worth is a coalition of business, civic, education, philanthropic, and community groups.
And what does that word spell?
Together, they're on a journey to 100 by 25. That's 100% of third graders reading at grade level by 2025.
Our community wants to make sure all students have the support they need to excel and grow into the talented workforce and entrepreneurs that our city needs to lead in the world economy.
Phase 1 brought committed partners and volunteers to the table for successful programs such as the Summer Scholars Cohort, which targets what's known as the Summer Slide. 71% of the children in the program gained or maintained their learning through the summer. Read Fort Worth Executive Director Anel Mercado says this next phase offers deeper work and new opportunities for impact.
Read Fort Worth has big, audacious goals around school readiness and third grade reading. We'll tackle them by working alongside our community through our collaborative action networks. Together, we can make a powerful difference in these areas.
The Read Fort Worth Collaborative Action Networks will be driven by data and will focus on results.
Like the best companies, those that really use data to monitor progress and make decisions, our
Open the meeting at 5:32 p.m. in the boardroom with a quorum present, recessed and reconvened, open session in the board conference room. Adjourned regular session, convened executive session, adjourned executive session, yes we did, and now reconvened open session at 7:56 p.m. in the boardroom with a quorum present. Do I have a motion accepting consent agenda items? Moved by trustee Anael Luebanos, seconded by trustee Norman Robbins. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, please move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously with 8 votes. Dr. Sutherland has departed for the evening. Moving on to 14, action items. With no action required on items A, B, or C, we will move to item D, which is 15. Approval of District teaching permits for non-core CTE courses. Do I have a motion? Moved by trustee Needham, seconded by trustee Robbins. Any discussion? It is 15D. Trustee Moss has the motion. Ms. Needham, if we could pull you off and give the motion to trustee Moss. Sure. Thank you. 15D, approval of district teaching permits for non-core CTE courses will be moved by trustee Moss and seconded by trustee Luebanos.
I move to approve. Thank you. Can hear me. I move to approve the issuance of a district teaching permit to Darrell McGee for the non-core CTE course of aircraft technology.
Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, please move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. 15E, approve appropriation of remaining 2013 CIP construction fund reserves for middle school restroom renovations. I know everyone wants to make this motion, but we just need one. Moved by trustee Moss, seconded by trustee Luebanos. Any discussion? I have some. Yay, I'm really glad. We all say yay. Okay, please move to voting. And the restrooms do pass, 8-0. Moving on to 15F, approve architectural services for middle school, nope, that's right. F, approve architectural services for middle school restroom renovations. Do I have a motion? Moved by trustee Moss, seconded by trustee Needham. Once again, big excitement. Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none, move to voting, please. And motion passes unanimously. 15G, approve adoption of resolution and order of election. Do I have a motion? Moved by trustee Needham, seconded by trustee Luebanos. Seeing and hearing no discussion, please move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. 15H, approve resolution and order for election services for the May 4th, 2019 Fort Worth Independent School District Board of Education election. Do I have a motion? Moved by trustee Luebanos, seconded by trustee Robbins. Seeing and hearing no discussion, please move to voting. And the motion passes unanimously. Any comments? See? Trustees Moss and Paz have comments. Trustee Moss, please go first, followed by trustee Paz.
Thank you, President Jackson. I just want to say thank you to all of the schools that sent the board members little notes or put on their marquee that we support you, board member. And I want to say thank you to District 3 principals, teachers, and all of those persons for sending me those little notes of appreciation. And I appreciate the principals. I appreciate the staffs that we have in the schools and the administrators, because we as board members could not do anything. We would not be able to be successful without our staff, without our principals and students and staff. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, trustee Moss. Trustee Paz.
Thank you. I already spoke to this briefly earlier in the meeting, but I thought that it's important that I address it individually. At this past weekend, I had the privilege to attend Lone Star governance training as a guest of Leadership ISD. They actually sponsored me to attend, so there was no cost to the district for this additional training. And, we most of us on the board have been through the Lone Star governance training. And I actually I was part of a committee many years ago that actually put together the framework that Lone Star Governance was born out of, which is a point of pride that I just like to take a lot of pride in it. But even though I've been through the training before and, know this deeply, I still get I always come back out of it with something just truly amazing. And it was such a great experience to be there and to kind of listen and learn with people who actually are not on the board. Maybe some of them will be someday. We actually had several people in the training who are planning to run for the board in the future. So it's inspiring to see that they are taking the initiative in advance before they actually get into the seat to really truly understand what the role is of a board member. But there was just something that I wanted to highlight here that I think was it was something good to take away and to what they say, go back and replay the tape. And as questions to ask yourself as you review different situations throughout your leadership and interactions that you have within the district. So the facilitator asked us several questions. One was, when was a time that my behaviors made it difficult for my school system? Most importantly, made it difficult for students in my school system. What was the benefit to me as a trustee? What was the cost to our students? And what was I pretending in that moment? And it doesn't matter what your answers are, but what is important that, and it is the center of the ideology behind Lone Star Governance, is that I am the genesis of transformation, and I am the one who controls my own actions. And, we can complain about teachers over here, we can complain about, the government or the state government over here and their funding, and we can make a lot of excuses about how all of our problems in Fort Worth ISD are everyone else's fault, or we can look inward and we can ask ourselves, what am I doing to make it better? And I thought that was just an important reminder to share tonight with my colleagues. I hope that some of you will consider going back through the training if you haven't already, because it was a valuable experience. And for anyone who hasn't, it's very good to go through, and I think that you would take a lot from it. So thank you to my colleagues for the opportunity.
Thank you, Trustee Paz. Final comment, I want to thank everyone for the MLK Service Learning Day yesterday. Ms. Breed and Ms. Hall and anyone else that was involved here in setting that up. It was a phenomenal opportunity that started here and ended up at Safe House. And I've had texts and calls and pictures, and everybody is so excited about it. So I think next year you may need to plan for like an 80,000 square foot warehouse, because I think you're going to have a giant event. So thank you all so much. And on that, we're adjourned.